Hey everybody, Pete A. Turner, closing out this week's episodes with Matt Locke, a podcaster, radio personality who we met in Dallas. Best-selling author Scott Husing is joining me today. He helped produce this episode. We met Matt along the way in Texas. He connects to us through Chad Prather, and we'll have Chad on the show in a couple of weeks. I should say real quick, I'm recording this on my roadworthy, bulletproof podcast rig. And if you guys are into podcasting, here's what I recommend. Get a Shure SM35 mic and a Zoom H6. It will not fail you. I am in a crowded, loud lobby at the JW Marriott at LA Live. It is prime time in the morning, so it's busy, and I bet it sounds great. Let me get back to Matt Locke. Matt's a great dude. He is the Conservative Sharpshooter, and his show focuses on politics. Look, when he talks on the show today, you're going to hear his perspective on things. And yeah, he's conservative, and I'm cool with that. I'm also cool with people that are progressives. It's one of the things that's great about this show is we get to understand perspective. And even if we don't agree with 100% of what Matt says, that's true of everybody. And Matt's a good dude. I'd have a beer with him. I'd have a drink with him. Next time I'm in Texas, you better believe I'm going to look him up. Not because of his political beliefs, but because of who the guy is. And I think that's the big message today is, we can all get along a lot better if we're all a lot more tolerant of each other's individual personality, individually, and how they express themselves. Nothing that Matt says is hard to swallow. This is going to be a fun show. You guys are going to enjoy it. It's perfect for Friday. A couple of the business things. Look, this is how you support me. Share the show. Subscribe, rate, and review. Tell your friends about it. If you just like it, that's something. But if you have the guts to share the show, that really is the difference maker. In terms of charity, SaveTheBrave.org. We're trying to get a bunch of monthly subscriptions stacked up to continue the mission of helping veterans with PTSD. This is a big deal, and it isn't that hard to do. $10, $15, $25 a month. Go to SaveTheBrave.org, click on Donate, do the monthly subscription, and you will be doing your part. Even a small bit is a lot of help. Hey, everybody, thanks so much. It's been a great week. I can't wait to show you next week's shows. You're all awesome. I appreciate you. Even if you're in Macedonia, France, Canada, England, Sweden, Germany, all these places, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, so many places that listen to the show actively. Brazil, Israel, Uzbekistan. I love all you guys. Here's Matt Locke.
Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay Moore.
This is Greg Proops.
This is Jordan Harbinger.
This is Dexter from The Offspring.
This is Nathan East.
Sebastian Younger.
This is Rick Marotta.
This is Stuart Copeland.
This is Mick Gillette.
This is Andy Summers.
Hey, this is Skunk Baxter.
This is Gabby Reese.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
This is Matt Locke of The Matt Locke Show. You're listening to The Break It Down Show.
And now, The Break It Down Show with John Leon Guerrero and Pete A. Turner.
Fantastic. I've got Scott Husing, Longhorn 6, on the show with me. He introduced me to Matt. We all hung out on Chad Prather's show, which was a lot of fun. And I wanted to start paying some favors back because being on Chad's show was a blast. And I love what you guys all do. Matt, welcome to the show. And Scott, thanks for co-producing.
Thank you, sir.
Always great to be with you, man. Love it. Maddie, what's going on down in Texas?
Oh, we're living the dream down here, my man. Not traveling as much as you are, but we're blowing podcasts out of the water.
Nice.
Love it. I'll be back down there October 9th through the 12th.
And I'm in Miami. Those 3 days. Gosh, dog it. We would have had a beer.
I think I will be in Dallas the last couple of days of October or the first few days of November. So I will keep you posted.
And I'm in Indiana that week. That's so funny. I'm leaving Indiana that week.
As we miss each other, flying by each other across this great nation. Give folks an idea of what the Matt Locke Show is. It's not Matt Locke, but it's Matt Locke, L-O-C-K-E. www.mattlockeShow.com. I'll put that in the show notes. But give us an idea of what your show is about so folks can start to click on the website. Hey, this is Pete A. Turner from the Break It Down Show, checking in real quick to ask you this. John, Scott, and I all support Save the Brave with our time, our location, our effort, and our money. Each month we give a small amount. Do the same with us. Go to SaveTheBrave.org, click on the Donate tab, pick an amount that you want to come out each month, and they will handle all the rest. I stand behind these folks. Thank you so much. Let's get back to the show. Give us an idea of what your show is about so folks can start to click on the website.
Well, it's unapologetically American. That's what it's about. We talk about all things conservative politics, patriotism, and I give you it straightforward. I'm not the mainstream media. You want the truth. As much as I can give it to you, I'm a pretty hard-hitting guy, but that's how I would describe the Matt Locke Show. We're straightforward, we're conservative, and we're unapologetically American.
Well, all right. Give us an idea what that means. I mean, it's one thing to say you're unapologetically American, but what does that mean? I mean, conservative, I kind of understand, but these terms are really vague these days. A lot of people say I'm socially, progressive and fiscally conservative. What does it mean to be conservative, and how do you be unapologetically American?
Well, those are great questions, Pete, because today it seems that we are watching politicians, especially Republicans, and Democrats, we always knew, but we just don't have any conservatism anymore. We don't have people who stand by the Constitution, the rule of law, who want America to be great based on how it was founded, and to abide by those principles instead of making up your own stuff as you go along. Now, President Trump is doing a great job of trying to make America great again, keep America great again. But I think being unapologetically American means you agree with how America was founded. I'm an originalist. I'm a constitutionalist. I believe in smaller government. I believe that there is a right and wrong, and I believe there's a rule of law, and that's why I call myself unapologetically American. I want you to follow the law. I want you, there's got to be constricts, and the Constitution gives those to us, and we're watching a Democrat Party, we're watching a civil war, really, fighting within the left and the right of who wants to change the way government is. And there's nothing wrong with what is currently already in place if we would just follow what's there.
Not to create hysteria when you say terms like civil war, I would submit that it is a political war, that these political parties, because I don't see the people, the public, creating the type of hysteria that mainstream media and our politicians who love to talk more about themselves, more about each other's media outlets than the public. I don't think anyone fears that there's going to be a rising of the South again, and we're going to go to war with ourselves. But I think that's an interesting topic that we've never talked about either, Matt, is who's creating the hysteria, and do we have the power within what we do in the podcast space, in these really cool forums, to really change that narrative and let average listener know, the people that really care to get their news sources from other things than CNN or Fox News, what the real truth is. And you do that a lot.
Well, and let me address, you've got a few questions in there. So let me take it from the top. First of all, I do believe we are in a civil war, more like an uncivil war. And if you go online to any social media, any outlet where people are hanging out, you're seeing a lot of uncivility. You're seeing people who are tribal. You are seeing arguments that are so far left and so far right that I do believe that currently the electorate are being led around by what your second question is, the fake news media, not only on the left, but on the right. Everybody is kind of tribal. They all want to stay in their tribes. They all want to believe what their favorite person says, be it Sean Hannity, be it Jake Tapper, be it George Stephanopoulos. People want to believe their heroes. And they want to believe Matt Locke, which I tell people, look, and you just hit on the third thing here. Follow me. I tell you the truth. I'm in your face. I'm hard hitting, but go do your research. Don't take my word for it. You can find all kinds of information everywhere. There are still libraries in this country. I mean, we don't have to just be on the internet to get our information. We can go look at encyclopedias. We can go look at periodicals. We can go look at newspapers that were before the time of the internet, and you can find information I'm giving you. Don't take my word for it. Take your word for it. Go be someone who cares about your country and wants to find out the real truth. But like I said, bringing it all the way around to that first question, we live in a time today where people are uncivil to each other. They're very in your face, very not very polite when it comes to a debate. And I think that has led us to be very tribal and very separated. And I think that's been done on purpose.
Yeah, like impolite. Everyone's so
Yes.
impolite to each other. And there's a lack of professionalism. And, we've said this before, is the people that have the most opinions are normally the least informed. And I think it's funny, as a guy that writes books, the demise of the public library. And then it goes into, well, what books in libraries, who's writing them, who's editing them from from the mainstream publishings, and your statement there that for food for thought. I just think it's very interesting as we move forward as a country on where we're getting our information sources from and who really is credible to provide that, when there's a massive gray area from commentary to reporting. And Pete and I and you have all talked about that.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Go ahead, Pete.
Well, I was going to ask you, some of the things that we seem to suffer with from the country is that we have so much freedom and the power really is with us. We just kind of have a laissez-faire attitude about the power that we all have, our own freedoms. Like, we're so fortunate to have stability and look, I'm talking in big, broad terms, everybody calm down, but stability, financial wherewithal, that, we don't have to necessarily even vote and we're going to be generally okay. And in reality, if you really want to have a democracy, or if you want to say that we're a republic, great, God bless, then you have to participate. Voting is like the end of the line. Like, the decisions have all been made and you choose A or B. So, if you really want to be a democracy, it requires a lot of work. And that work requires working with people you don't like. When we founded the country, we barely got 13 colonies together to ratify. We barely get things through because we have to tolerate one another and deals have to be struck. And we're just not in a deal striking time. I wouldn't go as far as to say it's a civil war because, gosh, I hate to think of what happens if Scott and I have to go out and do our work. Nobody wants that, because there's a lot of us that are really good at it and it's horrible. And we've got a lot of opportunity to be better at this. So I won't say it's a civil war, but for sure we are definitely uncivil towards one another.
Well, Pete, you hit on something that I want to elaborate on, because we are a republic, a constitutional republic that was meant to argue, that was meant to give in, was meant to compromise. That's why we have the legislative, executive, judicial branches that all have equal powers. It was meant to be a compromise. It was meant for adults to get into a room and hash out their differences. You want this, I want this. How do we get to this? What do I give up? What do you give up? What do I like? What don't I like? I'm a salesman by trade. I've been a salesman for 20 plus years. I started a podcast in my basement because I like to talk. But in the end, I'm used to compromise, because in a sales situation, you start with what you want and you end up with what both parties will see favorably. Now, I look at Trump this way. President Trump is the consummate salesperson. And he's telling Congress, he's telling the House and Senate, here's what I want. Here's what I would like to get done. And how can we get there? I'll give you this if you give that. You give this and I'll give that. And somewhere in the middle, we'll put something together that we all believe is good for the country. We've lost that. We've got right and left so hard that no one wants to come to the center. And sometimes you got to hold your nose to get deals done. You just do. Sometimes deals are really good. Sometimes deals aren't real good. And over time, if you're a good salesperson, you do better deals than not. But you still have the stinkers in there every now and then you just have to live with. But we don't get anything anymore. We don't get any kind of compromise. We don't get anybody to move anywhere. And everybody's just going to yell at each other and nothing gets done. What has the Congress gotten done in the last 3 years?
Well, this is a great point, man. And when I watch the Democratic convention, and I try to be as involved as I can stomach. Frankly, I don't like either of them, Democrats or Republicans.
Can't blame you.
But when we're up there, and now we're talking about the Democrats because they're all trying to decide who's going to take on the president. They're a bunch of except for Andrew Yang and Pete Buttigieg, they're all a bunch of U.S. Congress people who are like, I'm going to fix this problem. Like, well, get the fuck to it right now. What are you doing right now today? The border crisis has been a crisis for a long time. Immigration has been a problem for a long time. That's a legislative problem, not a presidential problem. The president, like you said, can say, I'd like us to go in this direction, but the legislature has to cut the check They've got to provision the laws, and they've got to write the laws.
Well, and Pete, they don't want to. They don't want to. That's the whole thing. And all of these people, you just hit on it so magnificently. And I'd love to hear your opinion on this, Scott, because you've got a bunch of congressmen and women up there telling us on the Democratic side that they're going to fix all these things. What have you been doing for the last 30 years? I mean, you've been in Congress, right? You've been in Congress for the last 20, 30 years, and now you're telling us you're going to fix things, but yet you've had 20, 30 years to do it, and you haven't. So why should we believe you now?
Yeah, I think there's not enough transparency about what is actually being accomplished, because that doesn't play well on the news. And with all of the candidates that are out there, I think, too, the public sees so much divisiveness with all of these public figures that are elected officials that we're not getting the right people to run for the job. I just think it's so dissuasive to have that type of job, to even hold that position, yet everyone complains about the lifelong retirement plans and the healthcare systems of elected officials that they're entitled to, their sense of entitlement from government agencies. All of these people, the great Americans that are entrepreneurs and smart people, they don't want the job. And that's something that we need to change, I think, institutionally, societally, so we can continue to get the right people to run for office. And you see that starting at the local level, where Pete was talking about votership. How many people vote at the local level and actually research the candidates? I think that we're in a real interesting position in America, where we have so many people willing to just regurgitate the same politicians, and the public, the voters, not voting people out of office who aren't doing the job.
Well, Scott, you're talking, and I agree with what you're saying, because when this country was founded, it was based on citizenry government. It was based on the public being, into the government, understanding what's going on, and being a servant of the government to make it work. And like you said, today, a good person, and I mean a quality person, be it a business person, be it someone that has some, background of some smarts, who is intellectual, even a regular person is not going to run for politics, because first, it's very expensive. You have to raise money. I mean, you're not going to run for anything without $4, $5, $6, $8, $10, $20 million in your purse, first of all. And most people can't do that. Secondly, good people don't want the harassment that comes with running for office, because they'll dig every skeleton you have out of your closet, no matter how small it is. If you were pulled over for speeding when you were 17, if you took to Twitter and said that the guy down the road was a dingleberry, they'll pull that stuff up and they'll be like, look, this guy's not qualified to do anything. We need someone who's like you. We need an attorney. We needed a politician who is smart and gets it. But what we really need is to turn the government back over to the people.
What if the people want more socialism than we have right now, Matt? What if that's truly... We've had a lot of people on the show that talk about political science and how things are structured. And one of the things that's true is this current era of gerrymandering, and this is absolutely true, is dominated by the conservative side of the spectrum. And it doesn't reflect what the people want and do. This doesn't absolve the left from doing gerrymandering themselves, and there's certainly districts on their side that are funny, but for the most part, the conservatives have that. So what do we do? I mean, here is a mechanism that is supposed to represent people, and we can look at the maps and be like, come the fuck on. This is, you can divide a voting block in half and have it dominated by another sect and just really not give them their voice. What if reality is, and I'm not saying that this is the case, but what if reality is that we're 5 clicks to the left of where you're comfortable? I'm
going to tell you where I think reality is from being educated and from my experience of talking to people and being on the radio. I believe this country is center right. I don't believe it's center left. I believe we're heading center left because we have a generation, and I think a lot of us are to blame. I have kids that are millennials, and my kids never wanted for anything. We went to the movies, we went on vacation, they had a good life. I made money. I've owned several businesses in my lifetime. It's the fault of the Generation X parents, me, who say, look, I want my millennial kids not to worry about anything. And now we have a generation that I call the microwave generation. They want everything instantly. They want it now. They want to be taken care of. And they believe, unfortunately, and I think it's a lack of education, and we can go into our higher education institutions for learning. We can talk about what's being taught to our children and everything else. I believe our children don't know any better. I've tried to tell my children, which I think are more in tune than others because I'm conservative. I do a national radio show and all that stuff. But I believe we've got a generation of people who believe that things are free, who believe that things are instantaneous, who believes that if they just vote for someone, they'll get something. But the problem is they're not being taught that history tells us nothing is for free. When you get something from your government, they're actually taking things away from you, like free health care. We can go down that road. If you get free health care from your government, they're going to tell you what doctor to go to. They're going to tell you what specialist to go through. You're going to lose choice. Do you want to lose choice? Of course you don't. All of these millennials and myself and other generations, we do want choice. We want to be able to be in charge of our life, but we want to be able to do that by saying, hey, look, I want this and I can get it. I like what the government's telling me, and I like what this person's saying because it sounds like I'm going to get more than what conservatism offers me. And it's not the case. So our education, what I try to do, and Scott's really helped me with this, and I really appreciate it. I try not to generalize in all of these things because there are millennials who are very smart individuals. They get conservatism. They get self-responsibility. They get it. And then there's another group that doesn't. We've got Generation Z the same way. But I think it's up to us, people that are older, who are elders, who have the experience to talk with these millennials and say, I can see where you're coming from, but let me tell you from my experience what I've seen, and let's have a conversation and see where there's things that you and I can both agree on and have that conversation, almost like going back to the government, to where we can all sit down and start from a nice platform of understanding and then work our way out to see the differences and work through them. Because I believe in the end, if you sit down with people, I believe people for the most part are self-reliant, they're self-responsible, and they're independent. And that's a big thing in this country. We just do a bad job of having that conversation.
Matt is so well versed in everything that's going on in the political stage because he goes to all the rallies and he's tied in. Matt and I actually met at CPAC 2018 when my book launched. And that's how we got in when Matt was back with Conservative Cartel. And tell everybody, Matt, just so they know how you got to this point, how your background started. I mean, we know you were in sales, but we had a great breakfast one day or lunch down in Texas, and you were telling me, because I'd never asked questions like, how did you get to this point? Like, how did you do what you do other than loving to talk?
Well, it's a funny story. I'll give you the abbreviated version of it for radio here. But about 6 years ago, I looked at my wife, and I'm a salesman. I've owned several successful businesses. I've always sold things. I've always talked to people, and I've always understood interpersonal relationships. Well, one day I looked at my wife and I said, I'm really not happy with what I'm seeing here in politics. And I love Rush Limbaugh. I'm a big fan of Rush. I always thought that he was really good at telling people what was going on in their politics at a layman's level. And I looked at it and I said, there's a lot of people listening to Rush, but I think I can do it better. Pretty cocky, I know. I mean, the guy is like one of the best talk show hosts on the planet. So I started this little podcast called The Matt Locke Show in my basement in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And it really just started out as a 30-minute rant. It was one of those deals where I would sit down at the microphone Monday through Friday, and for 30 minutes, I would really just air my grievances about what I saw. And then I started getting involved in local politics. And then the podcast grew. And then I was found by the 50,000-watt radio station WOWO in Fort Wayne, which is a legacy station. And they called me up one day, the program director did, and he says, hey, our afternoon drive time guy needs a kidney transplant, and he's going to be out the entire summer. Would you like to take over his show for the summer? We love your podcast. And I'm like, shut up. Come on. Here's a farm boy from Angola, Indiana, born and raised on a dairy farm, has done nothing my whole entire life but been a salesperson, got on a microphone and started talking politics. So I did that. I started doing that show. And while doing that show, it's amazing how all the tumblers came together, because that was about at the same time that the 2016 presidential election was going on. Because I've been doing the podcast for about a year and a half. And I was growing and getting more well-known, and people were finding the Matt Locke Show and all that stuff. And then I switched over to the Conservative Cartel, because I met Ron Phillips and Gavin Mitchell, and I thought maybe this was the way to go. And I ran into one day Glenn Beck at the WoWo Studios. He was down there in Indiana. He was campaigning for Ted Cruz. And him and I had this 20-minute conversation about who Matt Locke was. And I was amazed, because I've always been a huge fan of Glenn Beck. Now, he's gotten a little bit wonky, but that is neither here nor there. And he's still some people's cup of tea, not so much mine anymore. But he was walking a line back in 2012, 13, where he was calling people out. He was putting the information out there. He was standing behind it. And I love that, because that's who I am. I put the information out there. I stand behind it. It's my opinion, not anybody else's, but it's backed with, obviously, research and experience. So I like that. Well, Glenn Beck calls me up out of the blue about a month later and says, "Hey, how would you like to talk to me about doing a show on the Blaze?" And I'm like, "Yes, please." And that's how we met in CPAC, Scott. I was on the Blaze Radio Network doing the Conservative Cartel every Saturday there. And then, of course, the Blaze merged with CRTV. They didn't pick up our contract, and away we went. We formed Mojo 50 Radio. I've since moved on from there, and I'm doing my own thing, the Matt Locke Show. But I've always done this because I've always been really patriotic. I love this country, and being a farm boy, being raised in middle America. I mean, I went to school, got my Bachelor of Arts degree in English and communication. So I have that degree. I've always sold, but I always felt like I could bring a message forward for people to understand, because I'm just like them. I'm just like them. I'm middle America. I'm working class. I'm blue collar. I'm not upper middle class. I don't make a lot of money. I make good money. But, I feel like I'm like them. And I feel like there's a voice out there in middle America that is starved, that is just starved for the truth. And they agree. I'm telling you, he agrees. Starved. What we got old Yeller back there? He's agreeing.
Yeah. Well, I'm muting it out, though. It's all right.
I love it.
So that sense, that purpose, that middle American voice, it's vital to who we are and what we're trying to be. It's easy as a guy sitting here on the left coast to say, it's flyover states. Who cares about Indiana? But the reality is there's more states between me and New York than just New York and California. So as you have that sense, you have that culture because you are of it. But how do you take that message? Look, there's people that rant about shit all the time on the internet. How have you figured out what your voice is? Because that's one of the hardest things in what we do, is to find your voice and to really establish what it is. And then not just be bullheaded about it, but go, no, this is my voice. I know exactly what I'm doing, and I have a sense for what people want to hear.
Well, Pete, that's a fantastic question, because I kind of fell ass backwards into it. Honestly, I am Matt Locke. I mean, this is me. When I go on the radio, you get 100% me. I don't make stuff up. It's not a facade. It's not some production. But I'm a very passionate guy. I'm a very loud guy, but my background and my experience comes from the blue collar. My dad was a mechanic, worked at the electric company for 48 years. And I'm going to tell you a very interesting story. I come from a very poor upbringing. My parents barely had 2 nickels to rub together. My father got his job because he couldn't afford to pay his electric bill. My father went to the electric company and said, "I can't pay my electric bill this month. I would gladly work to pay the electric bill. I know how to work on these vehicles. I'm a mechanic by trade. I will do this." And so the electric company said, "Look, we need someone to do this." And they gave my father a chance. And 48 years later, he built a career. And it's amazing. I come from that upbringing. My mom was a factory worker. She sat for 30 years and clipped wires. All she did was made plugs for these big refrigeration units. They worked their tails off so I could go to school, so that I would have a chance to be better than them. And that's all they knew. So when I came from that, it's all authentic. I mean, when you get Matt Locke on the radio, you get loud, you get proud, and you get an opinion that is backed by what I believe is knowledge. And I read a ton of stuff. Scotty and I talk about this all the time, and most people don't know. I have what's called a photostatic memory.
Okay.
When I read something, I can remember about 90 to 95% of it word for word. It's not 100. I don't have what they call the other word, which is a photographic memory, but it's real close. So when I digest things, I can read things from 10 years ago and pull them back up in a conversation 5, 6, 8 years later. You know, I can do that without any effort at all. So when I read something, I have a really good knack, and this is probably where my voice is, of pulling concepts together that most people don't, in bringing in information that might have been from 5, 6 years ago that people have, you know, in today's society, 24/7 news, they've forgotten what happened 5 years ago. So I can bring that in along with the new news, make it comparable and topical, and people say, oh yeah, that makes sense. That's kind of my voice. I have that ability to do that, which is just quite frankly who I am. So like I said, I kind of fell ass backwards into it. It's just how my brain works. It's nothing special. There you go.
I'll say. I can appreciate what you're saying because I recall what people say. I've got a pretty powerful memory, and it's not perfect. But if you tell me something, like one of my favorite things to say is and again, this is neither left nor right. This is just an example. Bernie Sanders is too old. Joe Biden is too old. Elizabeth Warren probably too old to be president. Why?
Yeah.
Because that's what they said about John McCain when he ran.
Yep.
And so,
and Reagan. But they said that about Reagan at 69. There you go.
These guys are too old, right? And so you're like, so if that was true, two things are true. Either you're an asshole or you're a liar. Well, which one is it?
Yep. Or both. You could be both. Yes.
You can't be both. And that's a good voice because there's things like, I actually remember we've been through this. We've been down this road. In my state, we passed, the lottery because it was going to make our schools, we were going to invest all this money into schools. And what happened was the legislators were like, hey, schools are taken care of with the lottery. Let's pull the budget money out for that and spend it somewhere else. Like, what happened, or temporary taxes? And you're like, what happened to the temporary tax? Oh, well, we internally voted to keep it permanent. These things matter. So having that in your quiver is pretty cool. What have you bumped up against that you're like, motherfucker, I cannot get this figured out?
Now what I'm struggling with right now is just the laissez-faire. You said this before, the attitude that we currently have in this country about what is going on. I'm amazed and curious in many ways as to why people don't feel more impelled to do something. Why don't you feel like you should be part of the discussion? Why don't you feel like you should be part of the solution? Like I saw this the other day. This is the new world we live in. There was an article probably about 2 or 3 weeks ago. A young man was stabbed to death at a school over in the UK somewhere. Can't remember the town. There were 60 people surrounding this person. And instead of helping the young man, they all pulled out their phone and taped it. So the young man got killed. He was stabbed to death, but all the public did was sit there and watched. And that's what I feel like is going on in America today. I feel like normalcy, stuff that would be, considered natural or would be considered something that would be an everyday thing, is being stabbed to death while we all sit around and video it. Nobody is taking up the mantle of, look, America's great. America's amazing. All of the freedoms and everything that we do, only in America can a farm boy from Angola, Indiana, start a podcast in his basement and become a national radio show host and have a damn television show. Only in America. I couldn't do that in Canada. I couldn't do it in the UK. I couldn't do it in Turkey or Iraq or Iran or Russia or China. You just couldn't do it. But yet everybody, and you watch it out of the celebrities, you watch it out of the mainstream media, you watch it out of the Democrat Party, they all sit here and they poo-poo America. Well, I'm going to leave. I'm going to move here. I'm going to move there. Well, don't let the door hit you where the good Lord splits you kind of stuff. I mean, here we go. Be proud of who you are, but fight for what it is. So I think that right now, that's the thing I deal with the most that just completely bums me out, because I feel like we're in a time and place where people have lost the desire to fight for what they believe in. It's just easier not to.
What do we do about that, man?
Hey, this is P.A. Turner from Lions Rock Productions. We create podcasts around here. And if you, your brand, or your company want to figure out how to do a podcast, just talk to me. I'll give you the advice on the right gear, the best plan, and show you how to take a podcast that makes sense for you, that's sustainable, that's scalable, and fun. Hit me up at pete@breakitdownshow.com. Let me help. I want to hear about it.
Because I feel like we're in a time and place where people have lost the desire to fight for what they believe in. It's just easier not to.
What do we do about that, man?
It's a great question. I don't know. I mean, I talked about it on my podcast today, and there, I'm hoping, and by what I'm seeing with my experience and the information that's been coming out, I'm hoping people wake up, because President Trump is waking people up. We're starting to see things move. All of us sit here and we say, we feel like something happened. We feel like the Obama administration, Hillary Clinton, Benghazi, emails, Fast and Furious. Now you've got Joe Biden in this whole cover up with, Ukraine. It feels like the ice is starting to melt. It feels like the patriotism is starting to come back. It feels like people are starting to wake up and be part of, and this is all I ask. If I wanted anything for America, I would want more people, like Scott said, to be involved in the system. More regular people, more everyday people, not lawyers, not doctors, not these people who believe they should be in politics, but Joe Plumber. Remember Joe Plumber back in the day? Yeah. I mean, guys like that, ladies like that, who want to come out and they love their country. They're patriotic. They're middle class. They know how things work. They know how to be self-responsible, that want to be part of the fight, that want to be part of the solution, because I believe America can be great again. I believe that America can come together if people are out there fighting for the proper things.
Well, I think that's an important comment you just made, is continuing to share that voice. And a lot of people will just hide behind their keyboard or hide behind social media, and they don't take an active role. And that's what I like about the medium of podcast, because you have a lot of autonomy, but you also are putting it out there. And that takes a lot of guts in this day and age to do that. And the podcast space is getting more and more cluttered. And that's why it's important when you talk about the stats and the number of listeners, that shows credibility to what you do. And the fact that you're not just giving opinion, you're giving opinion based off of facts and research and doing that. And I think that's an important thing. And that takes a lot of moral courage. And I don't think there's many people that are willing to go to those lengths to buy the equipment, get the license, pay the fees, start their own podcast. And whether you're podcasting or writing an op-ed or doing something, and I've said this before, if you don't want to be criticized, if you don't want people to take shots at you in the public, just sit at home. Don't ever write anything. Don't ever say anything. And don't ever do anything. And you'll be completely safe. And you're not one of those guys, man. You're out there. You got your shield on one arm, your microphone sword on the other, and you're going at it, man.
I've got my mace. If you've ever seen if you see my logo, it's a microphone that's a mace. But, there's one thing I live by, Scott, and thank you, because you're absolutely right. There's one thing I live by, and I saw this years ago. Iron sharpens iron. It does. And if you're going to go out, into this arena, and if you're a conservative by nature, you better have sharp iron, because people are going to throw arrows at you. They're going to come after you. They're going to challenge you, and they're going to debate you. And you better be ready to stand up for what you believe in. It drives my wife nuts. If you saw my hate mail, and I get it daily, people, I remember when I told my wife I made it. Funny story here. I had just been on WoWo, but the first time I was on WoWo. And I'm going to tell you, I'm an athlete. I was drafted to play baseball professionally. I've never been nervous in my life. You put me in front of 10,000 people and I would talk about America all day. But I got asked to be on WoWo. And that first day I was on WoWo, I went from my basement where I was talking to no microphone, where I knew people were listening, but it's a different feel. I sat down in that chair with 50,000 watts strapped to my ass, talking to 3 different states, and I got nervous. I got the butterflies. And I'm like, holy cow, this hasn't happened to me since probably Little League Baseball when I was 8 kind of stuff. But, then the little angel started singing in my head, and I'm like, yep, right where I should be. This right here is right where I need to be. This is the space I need to be in. This is the voice I need to be using. But I got an email after that first show, and I remember it as if it was yesterday. This person says, I hope you wreck your fucking car on the way home in a ditch and die a fiery death because you're a fucking moron. Verbatim. And I laughed. I laughed. I looked at my wife and I said, I made it. They want me to crash my car into the ditch and die a fiery fucking death.
I almost thought it was your wife that sent that email. I made it.
No. But you when you're in this arena, and Scott, I mean, I will say you're more deliberate than I am, and I love talking to you because you have made me become less generalized in my statements, because you make really interesting points, and you always tell me, and your voice is always kind of in my head, because I remember interviewing you and you're like, Maddie, I don't want to generalize, because there are good left and there are good right, and then there are bad left and bad right. And if we put them all in the same basket, we're no better. And those words have always stuck in my head. And I have to tell you, I'm so glad you said that, because it has changed my perspective on how I say things. And you have to be very careful with your words, especially people like us who are in the position that we're in. I have a powerful platform that thousands of people listen to a week. I have to be very careful about what I'm telling them. And I have to make sure that that message makes sense, but is also backed in fact, because people will attack me for it.
You can't drink the poison. I always say that. There's always going to be people that just want to spew hate mail, and you just can't drink the poison. And I think as a person who puts themselves out there publicly, the good is never seen. The bad always comes to the top. That's why news is so flashy. It's always bad news sells.
Yep.
I mean, I was watching a local news channel just last night, and something local news covering what matters. And it was earthquake, murder, car crash, like all the bad news. But well, what about the other stuff that really matters? Like the great news stories of what our first responders do, what our military does, what our local leaders are doing. Never any of that. Well, at least there's no balance, in my opinion. And I think that we have to feel like we're doing some good in society. And I don't know in this day and age what that medium is. And at least the major news networks, I think they still do it. Like David Muir, the end of his show, or Dan Rather used to do it, and Tom Brokaw. There was always a happy ending to their segments. And I think that has gone away to a large degree. I don't know why we can't punctuate our shows with this, and just have a balance of good and bad. But when I sit and turn on a news channel and it's continuous coverage of Senate hearings, hey, wasn't that what fucking C-SPAN was created for?
Yes.
I don't know. Call me crazy.
Yes. And the funny thing is, scary sells, Scott. Scary sells. It does. And you're right. And today we live in a society of what I call clickbait, because now everything you see on the internet needs to catch your attention, because they need you to click on it.
It sells to pharmaceutical companies like Brilinta for people who have heart attacks, and ED medicines, because these are the people watching the shows.
Yes.
Guys who can't get it up. The news gives them a heart attack, so they've got to take Brilinta. Oh my God.
You're not wrong.
Pathetic. Yeah, I know. But
you're not wrong. It's a good thing I have a strong heart, because my wife says I'm gonna stroke out. If you've ever listened to a Matt Locke show, the veins pop out of my neck and my forehead, and I do get pretty excited. But you're right. Everything we see is just so over the top wrong. That's why I started doing, honoring our brave, honoring our heroes, because you don't see that. I mean, we have good people in this country doing great things. We have a president doing great things. We have congressmen and women, they're doing great things. There just aren't enough of them. There should be more good news. And I've always said this.
You're one of them too. And like Pete, I think I still owe you the images, but to support SaveTheBrave.org,
yes.
which the Break It Down Show is a proud partner. The Matt Locke Show is soon to be a proud partner of Save the Brave.
Absolutely.
To help our nation's veterans in one small way. And you don't have to write a big check to do it. You're doing it through sharing the word, sharing the message that, hey, this is just one great veteran service organization that's helping, and it's one I know of. I know the people that started it. They're legitimate. They're transparent, and they're doing. They're not just sitting around padding their coffers with donor funds or handing out blankets during Super Bowl commercials showing veterans without legs. We're doing something at SaveTheBrave.org. So I'm really happy to have Pete and you and so many others and Chad and all these guys that they just jump on board. Jay Moore is on board with his show. I just love it. I'm very grateful for that. But again, it's all about there's a talking, and this comes from three guys who love to talk a lot and get paid to talk. But there's also a time for doing, and you just got to shut up and listen and then act. And you do that a lot as well. Show me how you're doing that too. When the mic is off, Matt.
Yes.
What is
Who
it
are
that
you?
people should know about Matt? Yeah. What is Matt like doing besides running his soup cooler for a couple hours a day? People want to know. I want to know. I know, but
you're right.
I'm asking the question.
Yeah, but you're right. And let me tell you what I'm doing. So if you followed me throughout my career, the conservative cartel, we honored our heroes. And I'm a huge advocate for our veterans. My father and grandfather were both Army. I did not serve, but it is because of those folks that I get to get behind a microphone and I get to enjoy the greatest country on the planet. So I'm getting ready to premiere a new segment on the Matt Locke Show. I wanted to get everything up and running. I'm going on 8 weeks here next week. So I was doing a thing on the cartel called Honoring Our Heroes. Well, I'm going to do a segment on the Matt Locke Show every Wednesday called Honoring Our Everyday Heroes. And I'm going to start interviewing our first responders, our police officers, our firefighters, our military guys here in Dallas, Fort Worth, because I believe they should be showcased. These are the folks. These are the people that get up every single day and selflessly defend this country. So you and I, and you have, Scott, thank you for your service. Pete, I don't know if you served or not.
I served the best.
Well, but I love our veterans. I really do. And I have a big heart for them.
Salvation Army.
Oh, there you go. There you go. But, the thing is, like you said, Scott, what do you do
this morning?
He
was rifling through dumpsters.
Oh, well, dumpster diving, or, maybe you got the little red bucket out there, Pete. You're collecting the Salvation Army. Is that the Goodwill? I can't remember which, but what do you do when you turn your microphone
Matt, you
on?
were being esoteric and prophetic. Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
But that's what we do. I mean, that's what I do. I have a heart for that. Of course, every Friday's Red Friday. Remember everybody deployed. I have a heart for that because I didn't do it. And I'm very grateful that people do it because it's what makes our country amazing. It's what keeps us safe. It's what makes America so amazing, and why after about 240 some odd years that we rule the planet. We have the greatest military on the face of the earth. And it's like I conceal carry. I have many firearms. I'm not going to tell you how many because the government doesn't need to know. And I'm sure they're listening, right?
Yeah.
But I have many firearms and I conceal carry. I hope to never use that firearm. I hope to never have to pull that firearm out and defend myself or defend my wife or my family. And I feel the same way about the military. It needs to be strong. It needs to be the best. And I hope that we never have to use it. But if I have to use it, I'm pulling that firearm out and I'm killing you, period. If I draw my gun, you are dead. I practice frequently with it. I'm going to protect my life, my liberty, my property from you trying to take it from me. And I feel that way about veterans. We should have the best Army, the best Navy, the best Air Force, the best Marines, the best Coast Guard, the best Space Force. Because if we need it, we're going to come in and wreck your shit. And then we're going to be done. Because that's what it's for. And only then, if we have to use it, should we. That's always the way I feel. So I love the veterans. I can't say enough. And you know as well as anybody, Scott, my heart for that. I would do anything at the drop of a hat to go help anybody who has served in our military, period.
Yeah, that's a great point, man. And we all can help a lot of different ways. Your attention, your presence, your money, your time. Those are all things that you can provide to charitable organizations, whether it's Save the Brave or, whatever it is. I mean, there's a zillion causes out there. Don't feel overwhelmed, and don't let the fear of someone taking advantage of the system paralyze you from giving help, because that's one thing we can all do is probably do a little bit more. And Save the Brave, of course, I'm partnered because I know these people and they're legitimate. But even if you get it wrong and you find out 2 years later, you're still contributing, you're still doing something, and you can always pick something else. So Save the Brave, click on the subscription button, do 10, 15, 20, 25 bucks a month, and know that money is going to go to good work. Let me come back to the show here, Matt, and give us an idea. Where are you going to take us, man? I mean, you're already doing it. You've got, like, in so many ways, I'm like, you're my big brother show. I want to do what you're doing and get out there and get more of it. But I know, we're all trying to grow and find more ways to create more impact. So give us an idea of what we're looking at.
Well, I've already got the television show. I'm over on America's Voice News. So that's live every day, Monday through Friday, 12 p.m. to 1. So I've got that television show now that I'm rocking the truth. I'm doing the podcast. And of course, like I told you, little insight here, we're going to start honoring our everyday heroes and doing some stuff there. I'm also going to be out at Trump rallies, also looking to team up with a lot of different folks as I grow, because I want to get bigger. And to get bigger, and as you know, and Scott knows, you make these partnerships. I've partnered up with Scott, who's an amazing guy, who has introduced me to all kinds of great people. Rudy Reyes, I mean, good Lord, that guy's like the most interesting man I've ever met. But I get to meet all these amazing people. And what it's really all about, what I would really like to see the Matt Locke Show become, is a force that people say, you know what, the guy tells the truth. He's working his tail off, but you can tell he's sincere. And I want to help this guy grow because the message needs to get out there. I feel like there's a message there. I believe America is fantastic. I don't care what your political leaning is. I don't care if you're a Democrat. I don't care if you're a Republican. I don't care if you're a liberal or if you're a libertarian. I want to talk to you. I'm having a back and forth on Facebook right now with a professor out of Maryland. And I will tell you, the guy has been stating nothing but liberal garbage. I mean, it's all the talking points that have come from the mainstream media, but he's been polite about it. And we've had a very nice conversation going back and forth about, okay, I'm hearing this very same thing from the media. Can you tell me where you're getting your information? How are you coming to this conclusion? Because I'm coming to this conclusion because I see X, Y, and Z. You're seeing A, B, and C. How did you do that? Why did you do that? Do you not believe anything else? Can we have a discussion somewhere in the middle? And can we come to some kind of agreement that, I can see some of what you're saying. You can see some of what I'm saying. But in the end, we're Americans. So let's figure out what that message is. So there's still, I still have hope for the fact that we're reaching people, because in the end, that's what we have to do. We have to reach people. We have to have conversations. We have to be ambassadors. And I know Scott does a really great job of this. He's a really great ambassador when it comes to America, our armed forces, talking to people. And I know he talks to people on the left and right. I want to get there. I want to get to that point where we're having conversations all the time about how America can be better instead of being left and right, instead of being Republican or Democrat.
I love that, because that creates the word inclusion into everything we do.
Yes.
That's so vital, to be inclusive and not separate, which is what we wanted to do from the get-go as we formed this nation. We wanted that inclusiveness. And I think I'd be willing to interview anyone from the left, radical left, doesn't matter to me. I love hearing those opinions. I don't have to agree with it,
right?
But the fact that they won't even walk through the door because there's all of these political and business firewalls set up saying, oh, you can't do this show because they're left-leaning or they're a very conservative show. People have asked me, hey, how come you never do CNN? How come you never do? I was like, because they never ask me. They don't want a guy that is pro-military, that is obviously a Republican that talks about war, that talks about sacrifice. They don't want to hear that. That doesn't sell well for them. And from a business model, I totally get that. But at the same point, until we can break through those firewalls and really have people say, you know what, I'm going to be willing to go on Matt's show, get ironed out by Matt for 5 or 10 minutes, get my point across, listen to his, and not get into this pissing match on air. And, and just present your side of the story. I think that is really one of the solutions to the problem that we see in this space of information media in print and TV and radio that is just, it's killing us. It really is killing us as a nation, as far as that total inclusive mindset that we should be geared towards as a nation, that sense of patriotism and togetherness and everything we experience, sadly, that occurs after a major tragedy or the result of a war or a terrorist attack or a shooting in America in one of our schools. And that's something we really need to sustain.
That's fantastic. But no, that's, and Scott, that's what you do.
Matt in his tracks.
No, I mean, it's rare, so prophetic. I know.
Pete.
It's prophetic
Pete,
what you said, but it's
timestamp that.
Right. I mean, there is this overwhelming need in this country to be included. Everybody wants to be part of something, and they want to be part of something good. And they believe that their side is right. They believe that their argument is correct. And there are so few who have enough courage like you to go out there and to say, you know what? I know we don't agree. And we probably don't agree on a lot, but we're human beings. We're Americans. Let's have the conversation. And then, hey, look, if it doesn't work, if you don't agree, we go about our merry way. I'll tell you, I have a lot of friends, and I'm not afraid to admit this, who are liberals. They're good people. I would if they called me today, I would be on an airplane to Indiana doing whatever they needed, because they are good people. We have a good relationship. Now, we don't see eye to eye on politics, because I'm far right and they might be middle to far left, but we can sit down, have a conversation, drink a beer, and talk about current events and not want to kill each other, beat each other up, or beat each other's throats. There are people like that, and there's more than you know. And the really sad thing about politics that I have found out is that the media doesn't want you to find that out. The media they want you ginned up. They want you angry, because then they can manipulate you. You know what the media reminds me of? They remind me of my ex-wife's lawyer, because my ex-wife's lawyer wants me mad all the time. So I'll continue to fight her so he can make money and my attorney can make money. If you look at America, that's the mainstream media. They're like the divorce lawyer. They want you to continue to be mad. They want you to continue to fight, because if you come together and work it out on your own, they stop making money. They
must
stop
have taken notes from the Marine Corps. That's how the Marine Corps operates. They keep us in this perpetual state of piss offedness, so we fight better when it comes to dogs of war. Okay, so Rachel Maddow emails Matt Locke today and says, "Hey Matt, I want you on the show."
I'm in.
What's your response?
I'm there tomorrow. Today, what time? What time?
Yeah.
But look, that's my mentality, Scott. I'm a warrior. I mean, I didn't fight, but I'm a warrior. Let's go. I believe in what I believe in. I believe that I am intelligent and that I have studied enough that I can go have a conversation with her. Now, I don't know what the conversation will look like. I don't know what's going to happen. Like the other day, who was I watching the other day? Oh, I was watching Fox News the other day, the morning show, because I get up and I do my show prep from the night before, and I'm looking through it and putting my show together, and I've got Fox News on in the background, and the morning guy, Bill Hemmer, is talking to Eric Swalwell, and they're talking about Joe Biden in this video that Biden said, he's bragging. Yeah. I told him, you got 6 hours. And if that prosecutor's not fired, by the time I got to leave, you're not getting that $1 billion aid package. So Hemmer is asking Swalwell, well, do you believe that Joe Biden, pressured Ukraine into that? Oh, no, that's not what happened. And then Hemmer went right along with it. For me, I would look at Swalwell and say, you just saw the video like I did. It is blaringly obvious that Joe Biden wanted a quid pro quo out of Ukraine. If they didn't fire the prosecutor, Ukraine wasn't getting $1 billion. That's quid pro quo. That's favor for a favor. But yet you're on national TV right now talking to me saying that never happened. How can you say that? That would be the next question I would have. Just be intellectually honest with me. If Rachel Maddow wanted to have a conversation, I'll sit down and talk to her. Just be intellectually honest. Don't bring up innuendos. Don't bring up things that aren't the case. Let's talk about what has happened, and let's see if we can have a conversation.
Who is the one person, if they sent you that same email, you'd say, I am not going on your show?
Oh, I don't think there's anybody, to be quite honest. No, I mean, once again, I know exactly what I stand for. I know exactly who I am. I'm prepared. I'm educated. I do my research. Let's have a conversation. You know what? Yeah. You may have good points. I may have good points. We might learn something. I don't think there's anybody. There's a lot of people on the left I don't like. But once again, why should we shy away from that conversation? If you want to extend the olive branch to me and say, hey, let's have a conversation, I'm in, because I like to talk. Let's go. Let's go have a conversation and find out what happens.
On your show, you know that, brother.
Oh, I know it. And I love that, by the way. Fantastic. Your background and what you do. And like I said, there are a lot of things I have learned from you that I have to say thank you. Like I said, you've changed a lot of my thought processes when it comes to making sure that I don't overgeneralize. And sometimes I have the ability to do that. So you're in the back of my mind. I got a little Scott Houston guy on my shoulder saying that, Locke. You shouldn't overgeneralize. Yeah, you're right.
I just had an Animal House vision of that. Yeah, totally different context. Yeah.
Oh, it's funny, but yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, man, for always talking and having me on and sharing great veteran stories. That's important to me, man. Just hey, thanks for everything. Thanks for being on Break It Down show today with me and Petey.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Anytime. You guys are fantastic. Look, I'm up for the struggle. I'm down for the fight. Any day, anytime. You know, the internet's a fantastic thing. And that's what really drives me nuts, because we're watching, and we've talked about this throughout this whole show, we're watching people be so tribal on the internet, but the internet can actually bring everybody together. I mean, look, you guys are out there in California. I'm in Texas, and here we are sharing. This is a good thing. This should happen more. People should get together more, use the internet, get their voices out there, and it's there. Let's capitalize on that.
I think we should. And here what I want to say in closing is, when we have the opportunity to give out an ultimatum, if you like President Trump, you're a racist and you condone what he does. Okay, throw that bullshit away. Whatever side of the spectrum you're on, who gives a fuck? Find what you can agree on and where you can put your effort in and help. Either help someone get up and off the street, help direct someone to help, or work on whatever it is, but find where you have opportunity together rather than a way to shut someone else out, because diversity and unity are not the same thing. But if we work hard at it and we try to find, like you said, there's great people on the left, and there's some wonderful people on the right, and they all want roughly the same things. So let's find opportunities to collaborate and work on that. And when you feel yourself going on the negative side, stop. It's on you. It's on each of us to stop and go, you know what? What can Matt and I do together? How can we create something that's a little better, at least to the best of our ability, than what it is right now? And that's really where our focus can be, because then we really have the power that we need to impact the lives that we've got. President Trump doesn't affect my life on a day-to-day basis. Like I'm 150 layers away from that dude. There's nothing he can really do to cause me harm. But I can do a lot of good myself by just going out and grabbing somebody, not saying what part of their political spectrum are you on. Like, hey, how can I help? What can I do? Anyhow, hey, man, seriously, like Scott said, thanks for coming on the show, and let's do it again soon. And everybody, go check out themattlockshow.com or Real Matt Locke on all social media. You can also go to Cartel Matt on Facebook. And we will see you again and hear from you guys again, and we'll put links in the show notes. Thanks again, Matt.
Thank you, sir. Pete, Scott, it was a pleasure as always.